Hi guys, Every Knife Guy here, and one thing I will say about doing a knife channel and primarily a review channel and doing the sort of content that I do is it's always much more fun to look at a product that you really enjoy. That may seem obvious, but I mean a knife like this, the Manix 2, I love this knife. It's one of the most functional knives I own. I really love it for that, but do I enjoy it? Well, kind of. It's a lot of fun, but it's not fun like this is fun. This is the Microtech DOC, as you probably tell by the title. And this is a knife I never expected to own. Let's just have a look at it for a second. This is a knife I never expected to own. I won this in a raffle on Instagram. You've heard the story already probably, but I'll tell you it again. I won this knife in a raffle on Instagram last year. It was last August or September. That's 2015 I'm talking about, and we're now in April 2016. And the guy I won it from is called Life Through Glass on Instagram. If you get around on there, you'll probably have come across him before. He did a lot of raffles for a long time. He had some issues with PayPal. He kind of shut down his deal, which was a shame because he did some really cool raffles and some very cool gear. He still does some gear sales, so look him up, Life Through Glass. But he sent it out to me straight away. It got to the Canadian border, and they said, "Well, that doesn't look cool with us, does it? I mean, it's 9 inches long. It's got a blade that looks like it's specifically designed for killing things. It's well, yeah. Look at the jagged teeth on it. It's called the DOC, the Death on Contact. And we don't like it. We don't think you should have that in Canada, so we're going to keep it." And sure enough, they kept it. And I wrote to them and said, this is bullshit because this is a manual action knife. There's no assist. It's certainly not free falling gravity flick knife, anything like that. So there's no reason for you to keep it. And I never heard anything for months and months and months and months. Meantime, they had also captured a Paramilitary 2, which I've probably told you about before, and they duly destroyed that because apparently the Paramilitary 2 is a gravity knife. I never knew that. I thought it was a manually operated folding knife, but apparently it's a gravity knife or flick knife for all you Paramilitary 2 owners. So eventually I got a letter that said, and it says right on the front, I don't know if I have one of them lying around here. Hold on a second. Let me just fold this over here. Protect the anonymity. It looks something like that. It says Canada Border Services Agency right on the outside of the envelope. So I got one of those and I said, oh, this will be the letter to tell me they're going to destroy my DOC. And I opened it up and to my absolute surprise it said, after further consideration, in light of the Dangerous Weapons etc. Act, we have determined that your knife does not contravene the act and we will be sending it to you. And the next day, or it might have been 2 days later, sure enough, this showed up in the post. And I just couldn't believe it. So it was a knife, as I say, I never expected to own. And it was a knife that I wasn't particularly bothered about. I was bothered about the fact that I won it and then I wasn't getting it. It wasn't one that I was like, oh, there's a raffle for the DOC, I must have that. It was more like I was sitting looking at Instagram, this came up and I said, that's a badass looking knife, I need to see if I can win me one of them. But it wasn't something I was like, I've got a list of knives long as my arm that are knives that I really want to try in my lifetime, but this wasn't on it. But it has certainly grown on me since I received it. It's just an awesome blade. Not practical, but very cool. That would be if I had to give you one sentence to take away from this, not practical, but very cool. That's what I would say about the DOC. So yeah, it wasn't one that I would probably have rushed out to spend my own money on. These are still pretty expensive. They're high 300s at Blade HQ at the moment, even though it's been out for quite a few years now. This one produced, I think it's Focus 3rd 2015. Usual Microtech style. They've all the billboarding, all the information on the blade, which I actually quite like. It's just kind of their style, so it's just part of it. It's the first Microtech I've owned, and I probably would have owned one something else a lot sooner if we were allowed OTF nights here, but we're not. So this is my first Microtech. LMAX steel, as you can see stamped on the blade there. Nothing on the reverse of this one. This is a black coated blade, as you can obviously tell. Serrated version, which again wouldn't have been my choice if I was spending my own money on this, but I think it certainly suits it because this is probably one of the most aggressive folding knives I think I've ever seen. You just have to look at it. And the really aggressive, super sharp serrations on this certainly suit it, I would say. So what else does it have on it? The only other branding on it, I guess you could say, is on the pocket clip. possibly the most controversial pocket clip in folding knives of the last few years. There's a lot of hate for this, and Jim Skelton is one of the instigators of that hate. He had a bit of a tirade against this pocket clip, and I can certainly appreciate what he's saying. We'll come to that in a little bit. But anyway, you can see on there Anthony Marfione, of course, of Microtech Knives, and Mick Strider, because this is a collaboration knife, and it just says patent pending on the clip there. But that's it. Yeah, so if you couldn't tell, this is a Strider collaboration. You can just see by the overall form of it there, the slanted butt of the knife, the curved down spine of the blade, the compound grind of the blade, just the whole thing. I think it was, I can't remember which reviewer it was. Somebody described this as a Strider with a flipper. So if you wanted a Strider with a flipper, this was your one chance, because I think Mick Strider's gone on record to say he'd never make a flipper. This, of course, is flipper deployment. Almost exclusively. I'll come to that in a minute. So if you want a Strider that flips, boy does this thing flip, this would be your chance. Now, one of the things I love about this is kind of the noise it makes. It's a very mechanical knife. It's very chunky. It goes out with a thwack. It comes in with a clack. The noises this thing makes are just incredible. I've never experienced a knife quite like it. If you think of something like this, let's bring this back in. This goes ping, chuck, ping, chuck. And that's fine. The Paramilitary 2 is a delicate knife, and it feels it. It feels smooth, but it feels delicate and it feels precise. This feels very precise, but in a very different way. Listen to that. One of the best noises this thing makes, and I know I'm geeking out here, but one of the best noises this thing makes, if you open it just this far, just before the detent ball starts to bite, and go like this. Is that not a cool noise? Very, very solid knife. Absolutely zero wiggle, zero play, super thick blade stock, and there's just something about it. You pick it up and you just want to stab it into something. I regularly, we have a wooden gate outside our front door, and if I'm outside, particularly if I've had 2 beers, or maybe 3, regularly I'm outside and I just can't help it. I just take it out of my pocket and I just stab it in as hard as I can. For nearly a $400 knife, there's absolutely no qualms with using this thing in a hard use kind of manner, because you just feel like it doesn't matter what you did. You know, you could run over this thing with a truck and it just wouldn't matter. It's absolutely solid. It's on a full aluminum frame. You can see there the usual Microtech style hardware all over it, and we'll come to why that's a good and bad thing shortly. We have this grip tape insert here, which makes for a super, super grippy handle. The ergonomics, although it looks like an absolute brick, the ergonomics are actually pretty good. There's this really severe forward choil here, which my only complaint with that is it doesn't quite fit my finger, and I have quite thin fingers for a guy, and it only just kind of fits my finger. So if I had fatter fingers, I'd say that'd be quite uncomfortable digging against that front of the choil there. So there is a forward choil. This nice kind of swoop here where you have the cutout for the frame lock, and yeah, it does fit quite nicely in the hand. It's a full 4-finger plus, 4 fingers in the back position, probably about 6-finger grip in the front if you look at the size of that. The overall length, I don't know if I mentioned, is about 9 inches. Blade length of 3.75, and let's come to the usual Strider controversy. A cutting edge of 3.25 inches, just over a third of the total length of the knife, which seems kind of ridiculous, and it is kind of a ridiculous knife in lots of ways, but you know, it is what it is. It's that Strider design, and I'll come to the functionality of this shortly. On the flip of it here, we can see it is a frame lock. There's actually a frame lock insert. This is a titanium bar insert with a steel lock face and over travel stop built into it. So you have aluminum frame, titanium bar, steel insert, and of course steel blade. So that's the kind of the different things going on. And we have grip tape, sort of G10, of course, on the other side. The pocket clip, let's get to that. The pocket clip has been criticized by a lot of people as being ugly, Very unergonomic. You can see that nasty tip sticking up there that kind of digs into your hand. I do see what people are saying. I don't particularly like it. I like the fact they stamped the maker's names on it. I think that's quite cool. But it certainly can dig into your hand if you clasp down tightly. This knife is getting on a bit in age now, and I think they have modified this on newer ones. I have a feeling this is one of the older models. I'm really not too sure. I think they may have changed the blade steel at one point as well. This is LMAX, as I mentioned before. So yeah, the pocket clip is definitely a drawback of this knife, but the detailing is really, really cool. I think the contrast, this one, of course, the black frame, you get all sorts of different colors of aluminum, blue, green, red, orange, I think, and black, and they come with either a satin or black blade. You can see the back spacer here. Again, some nice machining on there, some little cutouts. Not very functional, but cool little details. Some large jimping on the back of the spine there. And down the tail or butt of the knife, and you have a little lanyard hole integrated in the back. One of the very cool details on this I find is, let me see if do I have a torch on me? Or a flashlight rather, my apologies. Yeah, let's see if we can get some light down in here. Can you see in there, there's kind of a groove milled into the back, and you can actually see screw holes coming into either side of it, which is this body screw here. There's actually a groove right down milled into there, and right into the back of the back spacer here, this groove. So if I can show you down this profile, you can see the V-shaped cutout there. That, if you haven't guessed it already, is to accommodate the blade when in a closed position. So actually the blade is so well housed in the handle that it's right into the back of the spine, right down in here. Now if that doesn't say confidence about blade centering, I don't know what is, because blade centering on this, this black blade is really sucking up the light here. Let's see if we can get the flashlight on it again. The blade here is absolutely perfectly centered, and if that wasn't centered, that would just look like crap, wouldn't it? It would look like crap, and it would rub on the edges of that groove. So that says something about the kind of precision that they're confident in producing time and time again with this knife, which they should be for a knife of this value, of course. But that's a really nice detail, and I think that says a lot about how precise and how well put together this is. Beautiful line in the closed position actually as well. This curve of the spine of the blade comes right down into this very unique kind of double beveled kind of area here at the front. And if we turn it around, we can see that when you open, that actually houses the stop pins here. Now these are, I would say, technically stop pins, but they can be used as thumb studs. I would put it that way. So you can, with a little bit of effort, push that open, and it's quite nice in actually a slow deployment. It is really quite smooth. It was a little gritty when I got it, but it broke in fairly quickly. And again, you hear those wonderful noises when you open it. But one way that actually isn't really intended for deployment but works quite well is because you have this huge flat of the blade here, you can actually get your thumb right on there, and just by pinching down, you can actually just open up your thumb like that, which is really quite nice, quite smooth, quite easy to break the detent and get the blade out of the handle, considering that, yeah, you have to give it a real whack. And you see how that flies out there once the detent is broken, but you do have to give it a real whack to get it to do that. I'm sorry guys, I'm just kind of in love with the sound this thing makes. So let's have a little look at some comparisons for this, if there are any. There were a few things I said I'd come back to, but I can't really remember what they were. We touched on the deployment methods, the pocket clip. The other thing I guess was a blade. Now this is a spear point blade, compound grind. So you can see on the plain edge version, of course, this is just plain edge with this kind of flat grind here into this front part. There's all sorts of different angles going on there, and makes for a very cool looking blade. It actually looks a little bit better in the satin, I think, just because you can see the angles and the style of it a little better. The length of the cutting edge is a little bit laughable, but that comes down to how comfortable you are with those in general on Striders and knives like that they're all about the tactical aspect. You know, nobody's going to mess with you one of these, but how good is this for EDC tasks? Well, not particularly. It is absolutely razor sharp. I don't know if I have any paper here actually to show you. Well, it came to me razor sharp. I've used it for about a month now, but we'll try it anyway. And this here, oops, that is the serration I'm cutting with. So that's one of the serrations, and I'll see if I can actually get it to the plain edge nose of the blade, if I can do that. It's a little hard to keep it on there to cut with, of course. but I think you can tell definitely no issues with sharpness in this. It has dulled a little bit because I've been using it and stabbing it into all sorts of stuff, as I mentioned, but it came like an absolute razor to me. I don't know if it's still, maybe not quite hair shaving sharp anymore, but it certainly came to me hair shaving sharp. So the blade, yeah, very cool. I think we'll go on to comparisons now, so I'll just lay that down there for a second. Just look at size first of all. When I first got this in hand, the knife it reminded me, of course, was this, Zero Tolerance 0560. Fairly comparable in size. I think you can see there. Let's just have a look at comparison of cutting edge. Yeah, a little bit of a difference there, I would say. So this, which I previously considered not all that practical for EDC because it's a big wedge of steel, also in LMAX, of course. Didn't previously consider this that practical, and then I got this and said, well, yeah, this is taking impracticality to a whole new level, because although it is very sharp, you're really not going to do too much work with that, particularly the serrated version. This is a knife that makes me feel cool. It makes me feel like a badass. It makes me remember day after day when I carry it how much I enjoy folding knives, why I enjoy playing with them, and why they're cool. That's what it does. It doesn't particularly go in my pocket because I know I've got a lot of EDC work to do. That would more likely be one of these, Manix 2, or of course Paramilitary 2 All-Star EDC blades that are for getting work done day in, day out, and this is more just as an expensive but very fun toy, and very useful in the right situation, of course. And you know, as I mentioned before, for being a knife for that value, which to me is a lot of money for a folding knife. I know to some guys it's pence, but that depends on your own budget and parameters. To me, that is an expensive folding knife, probably the most expensive one I own. But there's just something about it. It doesn't make me feel nervous about carrying it, dropping it, whacking it into stumps of wood, doing anything with it. So that is good. And part of that, of course, I think is to do with the weight. Let's just have a quick weigh-in, shall we? Let's grab scales here. Now, let's see if that'll clear. Okay, so Paramilitary 2, 3.8 ounces. Manix 2, 4.9 ounces, quite a bit heavier than the Paramilitary. And this ZT-0560, which I previously, of course, considered to be quite a heavy, bulky, chunky knife, 6 ounces. So what do you think the DOC will be? About 6 ounces. Same kind of size as this. This one titanium, aluminum, of course, lightweight material. Big blade on this one though, isn't it? So what did we say? 6.04. DOC 7.6 ounces. Wow. 7.6 ounces. 3.8 times 2 is what? 7.6? It is exactly pretty much twice the weight of a Paramilitary 2. So if you have one of these, think of 2 of those in your pocket at any given time rather than 1. So it is very, very heavy. And part of the reason for that is the blade stock. Let's just have a look at that in comparison to this ZT first of all. So again, ZT, very chunky, heavy built knife if you ever try one of those. Look particularly up near the tip on the Microtech. It's a little hard to get this perfectly straight, but it is symmetrical. It's just the light here that's kind of messing with your eyes. Look at the thickness of that. So not a huge difference right back at the lock bar, but as you move up, the thickness on this just, you know, it stays chunky all the way to the tip. So it's quite another quite good point for this, that it is such a nice slicer on the edge. Shows you how sharp it is. Let's look at it at the Manix 2. If we get a comparison here. Makes the Manix 2 look like a toothpick, doesn't it? So what's it going to do with the Paramilitary 2? I imagine it's going to be even more extreme than that. Let's have a quick look. I know this video is running on and on, guys. I'm sorry, but as I say, it is always fun to get a knife that you enjoy talking about, so I'm going to talk about it, I'm afraid. And yeah, look at the point in the point comparison there. Bit of a difference. So it's a whole different animal. You can see there the size comparison with the Paramilitary. Whole different animal, and as I say, I love it and I enjoy it in a whole different way from the way I would like the Paramilitary 2 or the Manix 2. So yeah, very, very cool. I think we're kind of coming to the end on this. It's let's just look at deployment one more time rather. So the flipper, the real kind of shark fin flipper, it does have a little bit of jimping on the front there. It's kind of curve on the back, and of course when you open it, that becomes the back of your forward choil. So nicely shaped, because you see the curve there, comes the back of your choil, so your finger locks in there, and also comes the front of your rear choil or your guard here. Locks your hand in either way, really nice. No ramp here, of course, just flat on the top, but you definitely feel locked in there. Reverse grip, again, you have jimping on the back here for your thumb. That's absolutely solid, even if you moved your pinky finger down into there. That's a mean looking knife. There's just no two ways about it. That is a weapon of a knife, and I'm not big into weapons, but in terms of a knife that looks like a weapon, yeah, you'd be hard pushed to beat that. I think it just looks kind of like a badass, doesn't it? So let me get back to my original point, which was you can either push button. It doesn't need a lot of preloading your finger, just a little bit of load, and it really flies out, which, given the size and weight of that blade, is testament to how smooth it is. This is on ball bearings, of course. And of course you can light switch it as well, which is a nice option. I always used to be more of a light switcher than the push button. But it's it's fun both ways. One criticism there, you can probably see as I'm bringing it close, is the detent is quite severe to get it past, but it's not one of these flippers where you're having to shift your grip to do it. You can certainly push over the lock bar quite easily, even back down here with your thumb, and get the detent pass. So you're at this point, and then just a little shake brings it closed. So it's not one of these ones that you'd have to sort of double clutch, as people sometimes say. You can very easily close it like that, and oops, just flip it around. Very, very smooth, very easy to deploy, and a lot of fun to flip, or as I say, to use your thumb and just do it that way. So I think that about wraps it up, guys. If you couldn't tell by now, I do really, really enjoy and like this knife. It's maybe not the exact spec that I would have chosen. I quite like the coloured ones, although of course for a knife like this, which is all about, I would say, looking like a badass, the all black looks pretty cool. I have seen them with black hardware, which would also be a nice touch on this. Long term, for a knife that I never really considered owning prior to winning this one, for a knife I never really considered owning, it's strange, but this is something I would probably buy another one of. I would buy a plain edge, probably with the blue scales, yeah, it just looks awesome. So look up the different variations on somewhere like Blade HQ. They have all sorts of different ones, and you can check out the different styles on there. And just give it, give it some consideration, guys. I was not a believer by any means, but just one day in hand, and I really took to it. So that's the Microtech DOC, guys, and there is an auto version as well called Kill Switch. Or is that the assisted one? I think there's maybe actually 3 versions. I'm a little hazy on that, but yeah, a few different versions available, different colours, and definitely a knife I would recommend. Thanks for watching, guys. I know it's a long video. I do apologise for that, and I'll be back with more knife videos soon, hopefully. Have a great day. Cheers.